welcome everyone. Looks like we've got about 50 people on board, and there might be some more coming on later on. So we'll make a start now. So thanks very much everyone for giving up some time to participate in the webinar. This is the first in the series that we'll be running throughout the year. And what we're going to do is look at different topics throughout the year. So today I'm going to give a fairly general overview of some of the things to do with online assessment in the Web 2 environment. And then I'm hoping that people will give us contributions as well for some of the issues that we'll bring up. And then throughout the year, we'll have guest speakers come in. And on our Transforming Assessment website, you'll be able to see the timetable for the rest of those talks. And also, if there's anyone that you'd like to suggest to us that you think would be a good guest speaker in our program, we're really happy to put on some more webinars. So please feel free to let us know that. So what I want to talk to, or at least start the conversation today about, is why? Why bother? Why should we bother changing assessment? And why should Web 2 actually make any difference to us? There's lots of people who have been talking about Web 2, and there's lots of people doing things in Web 2. And certainly one of the issues around using Web 2 is it's fine to use it for learning activities, but what happens when it comes to assessment? How are we actually going to assess students in these new types of environments that we have? So what I need to do is to acknowledge some other people who have been involved in this work with me. And first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the Australian Learning and Teaching Council who've provided funds for a fellowship. So the work that we're doing on this Transforming Assessment program has been funded by the Australian Learning and Teaching Council. And yes, you've got a picture of me there again. So this is Geoffrey Crisp talking through this webinar. And I'd like to acknowledge Matthew Hillier and Shamim Jordo, who both work with me on this project and this program of activities that we're doing. And a lot of the things that you'll see today that have been built in Second Life and on our Transforming Assessment website are the work of Shamim and Matthew. So they're the ones who have the technical expertise, and I'm the one who just sits there making some suggestions and actually trying to get them to actually put it into reality. I'll just give you a brief outline of at least the formal part of the presentation. So we'll give a bit of an introduction to learning and assessment. I want to talk a little bit about Web 2. Then I want to talk about assessment, in particular Assessment 2.0. And I'm going to acknowledge Bobby Elliott when we come to that page, because Bobby has written a paper on Assessment 2.0, and I thought it was an excellent paper that he wrote, and it's got lots of things to think about in terms of how we go about assessing students in these new types of environments. Then I want to talk about some assessment in the virtual environments, and then talk a little bit of, or at least gaze into the future, if you like, about where we're going with all of this. Now, I notice Peter's still got his hand up there. So is that through the text chat, Peter, or are you having trouble with the sound?
It's just a mistake, Jeff. I'll cross it out.
Okay, thank you. Because I'd really like to, if people do want to come in and say something, I'd really like to give people a chance to be able to do that. So if I see a number come up in the where the hand column is, I'd certainly like to hand it over to people. So feel free to do that. Don't feel like you've just got to sit there and listen to all of this. If you have something to say, please join in. So what I've got up here is just a couple of slides or a couple of pictures to do with learning, teaching, and assessment. And really the question I really want to set to start off with, is this what we want? Is this what we think learning, teaching, and assessment is all about? Because this is a lot of what happens in our institutions. And I guess to be really honest about this, quite frankly, it's not good enough. I mean, that's really what I'd be saying. And we need to rethink all of this. And we need to rethink what we're doing with the students. We need to rethink about the time that we spend with them and the activities that we get them to do. Because I think one of the really crucial issues is, are we giving students activities that are actually worthwhile? Or are we just giving them activities to do because they're convenient? And that's a lot of what I want to talk about today, is about convenience versus things that are actually worthwhile. Because we can often spend a lot of time setting learning activities that we think are worthwhile for students to do, but when it comes to assessment, we often are very traditional We're often cautious, especially with high-stakes summative assessment, and so we revert to things that our colleagues are perhaps going to feel are very safe for us. So one of the things I want to certainly bring to the fore in this is really a challenge, if you like, is that we should be able to do better than this. Now, I'm not saying people aren't. There's lots of people out there doing really interesting things, but not necessarily on a systematic basis. And so that's the other thing that I'd really like us to think about, is how do we systematize some of the really good work that's being done by people? Because one of the really key issues is it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. And certainly teachers, academics in universities have a wide variety of things that they have to do. Learning and teaching is not the only part of their work. They have workload in research, they have workload in administration, they have workload in community activities. Many people practice as well in their profession. So there's a lot of constraints on the time that people can do. And I'm going to say up front now that a lot of the things we've been working on this year in terms of assessment in the online environment actually are a lot of work. And quite frankly, I can't see a lot of academics doing that. So part of what we're doing is showing possibilities, but also setting out the challenge there that this needs to be made easier, right? Easier for academics to be able to do. Because even though there's lots of nice things, lots of interesting things to do out there, quite frankly, at the moment, they're just too much effort. And that's why we don't get a lot of engagement with a lot of academics. So what we really need is for, first of all, the technology to become simpler to use. We need things to be more systematic. We need the support that institutions are going to provide to be more systematic as well. So anyway, I've probably given you the conclusion there, but let's just go through and look at some of the other things.